Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode on Sattology, debunking mythology. And today we are talking about feminism in a very Vedic way and how it is important. We have already discussed parts of it in the last series with this famous speaker, very good speaker. We're going to talk about feminism in a different way from the perspective of divinity and also we'll find out how women have been the it's in Vedic scriptures is called the first guru, and how they have been traditionally the leaders, unlike in some other faiths where they have not that position, but somehow the media propaganda is so high that it seems that we have negative perceptions. But we'll clear that out, and we will discuss simply from point by point on many of these issues. uh, it's a purely educational program, so when you have any comments, do comment on YouTube, and you can also reach out to our Sattology clubs for further clarification. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Lakshmi Bayi Nalapat, the 12th princess of Travancore. So welcome, Lakshmi ji.
Namaste,
Can you hear me?
Namaste, Aditya. Thank you for. Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Namaste, Aditya. Thank you for having me. Actually, when you were reading out the names of the universities, I was sitting here in India feeling homesick because it's more than a year since I came to the US.
Uh,
And I came to the US first when I was 19 years old. I landed in JFK, and the first picture I saw was New York loves you. You know, it was a big billboard saying New York loves you. And I fell in love with that big billboard, and I don't think I have fallen out of love after that. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting topic which you have given me today. As I have stated, I am not a feminist. I do not believe that women need liberation. I believe that everybody needs to be liberated from whatever is fake, whatever is bad, whatever is controlling. There is a difference between law and control. I don't mean be lawless, because then that the society as we know it will break down if there is no law. But that is, law is very different from control. Control is when somebody is restrained from doing something which they want, um, just for the sake of those who are in power, whatever be the religion, whatever be the government. Now let us talk about, let's first define feminism, okay, before saying what is good about it, what is bad about it. If you take Indian system of divinities, you have the Trinity, the creator, the destroyer, and the preserver, the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha. Not exactly in that order. Um you also have a very interesting shloka in Sanskrit, which I love. They say, I'll just quote just two lines. I'll quote it in Sanskrit and then give you the translation. It is Kim va Krishnangri Padma Dyutibhi Radunita Vishnu Padya Pravadya. Aditya, I can't see you anymore. Okay?
Please continue. Only for recording purposes you have
Okay.
done. Please continue.
Okay. Which the translation of which is, she whose black feet are lit up by the gems on the crown of Vishnu and other gods prostrating her. This is a shloka. This is a shloka to Mahishasura Mardini, and you can see that all the gods have come and fallen at her feet because none of them are able to destroy the demon Mahishasur. Because Mahishasur, he said that he needs protection from devas, the gods, the godlings, the spirits, very similar to the forest spirits, human beings. but he omits to ask for protection from a woman. And it is ultimately a woman who decimates him. Now, that is women in divinity. Okay. Now, you also have um, great women who are there in our Puranas. King Janaka, father of Sita, was supposed to be the most righteous of human beings. And there is this episode where there is an unknown woman mendicant who comes into Janaka's court, and actually she pulls up Ashtavakra and says, your knowledge of Brahman as in the divinity or the supreme, is not perfect. Please remember that Ashtavakra is the Raja Guru or the teacher of Janaka, the teacher in Janaka's court. And she says, if you want the right answer for this, please ask Janaka. So that is one instance where, you know, this lady, unnamed, puts Ashtavakra very firmly in his place. You have the most two famous women are Maitreyi and Gargi. Gargi was the wife of Yajnavalkya. She was also the teacher of Yajnavalkya. Okay, she was his wife, and she taught her husband. All these are women who pushed people or guided people or showed people the way to self realization. Okay. Then you have in the book Tripura Rahasya, you have a princess called Hemalekha. Hemalekha, very interestingly, teaches her husband Hemachuda, Prince Hemachuda. Not only that, she is very, very interestingly and very, very unusually the guru of her mother-in-law even. Okay, and you have in a book called Yoga Vasishta, you have Queen Chudala, okay, who is Shikhidwaja's wife. Then you have Lopamudra. Very interesting. Lopamudra could be considered to be the first created, human created child, because sage Agastya, um, uh, I think it is Agastya, okay, wants a wife, and he searches the whole world and he doesn't find a wife. So he creates Lopamudra. He himself creates, she's not his obviously she's not his biological child, but he creates Lopamudra, and later on she marries him. You have if you go down south, you have sages like Avvayar. There are supposed to be three Avvayas, that is from Tamil Nadu. You have Akkamahadevi, you have Mirabai, you have Andal. Now, these are all women who have loved God, okay? Now, what is very interesting is that nowhere in Hindu philosophy has a woman been something to be denigrated. She's not impure. She's not a second-class citizen. And we have somehow, the moment you decide that the male is better than the female, you're down the path of destruction. The only thing you can do is, a woman is very different from a man. That is true, because you cannot have equality of the body, for example, because unless you're a parthenogenetic creature who can produce a child by itself, the higher beings have to have a male and female to create the embryo. A man obviously cannot bear a child physically, unless you are Samba in Dwaraka. But that is an exception. That's not the rule. Nor can a woman impregnate herself. So when there is this balance, then there is no problem. The moment you sort of the moment it makes it man versus women, then there is a problem. And somehow I feel, now this is going to sound horrible to a lot of raring feminists. I think feminism is against femininity. You see, um, it's good to be gentle. It's good to be kind. It's good to take care of yourself. And believe me, I'm going to be 59, okay, this year, and I love it when somebody takes care of me. Okay, I'm in a plane. I carry lots of books which are generally so heavy. Somebody helps me to put it up on top. I'm very happy with it. I don't think he's questioning my strength. So it helps me. So in that sense, it's only when we learn to sort of complement each other. Complement, not Pliment, each other, that there is a harmony.
You put some very good points on balance, harmony, and how the society can be much more stable when people recognize each other's strength. And you put it very well that how feminism is should not be against femininity. And so these are very good points. And the historical nature of the feminism movement has come in the West because of widespread, uh, I would say, human rights violations against women, big time. And nowadays, you see the Western media jumping up on India, but you see the atrocities against women started increasing after the male dominated concept of the Western society started getting introduced in the Indian culture. Earlier, it was not like that. Like in Kerala, in other places in India, I would say Northeast India, even if you look at the history of India from Mahabharat perspective, Kunti was a leader of the society, and she was a queen as well as Gandhari was a leader of the society. And very few people do not know that Gandhari was a very good economist, Arthashastri, and she used to advise uh, her husband Dhritarashtra on many economic matters of the state. And so you had that, and then you had Kunti, who single-handedly brought up her five sons, single-handedly, from childhood, and she made them into Pandavas, which were like the force to reckon with. But she never left her position as a mother, as the princess, as a queen. She continued that position also, and in later on, even in the lives of Pandavas, we see Draupadi was a very educated person, highly educated. She had all the Vedic knowledge, and which Pandavas also had, and she could argue with Yudhishthir also on dharma. There is a big episode in my last book. I've captured that, where she had argued with Yudhishthir that she's following dharma. Where is his dharma? And Yudhishthir also replies in a very beautiful way. So it was a relationship of equals. Uh, Obviously, she was very respectful, and Yudhishthir was also very respectful, very patiently listening to her the entire episode. And there are other historical references from the Vedic scriptures or Hindu scriptures where they show women on equal level in terms of knowledge, reasoning, intelligence, and also spiritual level growth. And it's coming even before Pandavas Kal, like Dushyanta and Shakuntala. Very amazing example. Shakuntala was a warrior, was a princess, was a educated person, highly educated person. In fact, she had the power to defeat Dushyant also, but she did not do that just to uphold the honor of Dushyant Maharaj. She, in one line, she says, "I have the power to break your head in thousands of pieces, but because you are the father of my son, who is going to be the great king of this land, I'm not doing it." She says that.
I
So
wonder, Aditya, I wonder how many women would agree with that sentiment. Okay, that one. Not breaking your head because you're the father of our children. I mean, of my kids.
yeah, she had all the
You
mystic
know,
powers.
contemporary.
Yeah, she had all the mystic powers, and modern historians don't put it that way, but I have put it in my book like that because I want to show that what was the condition of the women at that time. And also there was very little I mean, they used to maintain their femininity, but feminism was alive. Because
Yes.
sorry, feminism in the negative, not in a negative sense, but I'm saying in a positive
Yes.
sense. They're proud of being women, the mothers, and they were also the first guru or the teachers of children. This was very much alive even in that culture. But in the modern, if you see the last, only after 1638, all these different conceptions on why women should be considered lower than men, all these things came in recent times, not in the old times. And especially came from European class based society or kashta based society. So, what do you have to say that in terms of this historical thing? I said I spoke very old antiquity history, but then coming back to Rani Lakshmi Bai, and again we see the leadership right there. So, what do you have to say that how this relationship has evolved according to the history?
Let's take a very unpopular female character, okay, of the Ramayana, Kaikeyi. Okay. Now, Kaikeyi is depicted as a total villain. Okay. She is the one who's responsible for Rama going into the forest. Actually, in a certain sense, you could even say that Kaikeyi was the reason why Ravana was killed by Rama. If you look at the original reason. But look at Kaikeyi. What did she do? When Dasharatha was fighting a battle, the axle of one of his wheels slipped away and his chariot would have crashed. So Kaikeyi stuck her finger into the place where the axle should be, and Dasharatha was able to continue the battle quite successfully. She also assisted Dasharatha in his battles. And at that point, Dasharatha asks her, now you've saved my life. What can I do for you? What can I do for you in return? And then Kaikeyi says that, look, I don't want anything right now, but I'll tell you. When I want something, I'll tell you. And it is then that Dasharatha wants Rama to be the king. And then Kaikeyi, of course, at the instigation of Manthara, says, send Rama into the forest and make my son Bharat the king. Somewhere she saved her husband's life. She also stood up for her son Bharat. The love that maybe it was excessive. Maybe Rama was uh, more of a dharma person than Bharat. But actually, if you look at how Bharat behaved with taking Ram's paduka and putting it on the throne and sitting on the floor and ruling Ayodhya as a region for Rama, it's very very hard to say who is the greater dharmishta, whether it's Ram or Bharat. So Kaikeyi is blamed for that, and but somehow I feel that she has been, she has been more sinned against than sinning. She loved Ram, but she had very natural ambitions for her son. So how can you fault her? You have Kaikeyi in Ramayana. You have, as you said, very interestingly, one of the most interesting female characters is Draupadi. Really, because she came from the sacrificial fire. She's a warrior. She's dark. Draupadi is dark. One of her names is Krishna, not Krishna. Not the short Krishna, who's our Govinda. And now you have all these hang-ups about body shaming. Unlike in the West, where people like tanned skin, in India you say fair is better. I have a fair daughter who has to get married, etc. And but Draupadi is completely against the now accepted norms of beauty. Okay. And the relationship, if you read the relationship between Draupadi, I'm calling her Draupadi so that there will be no confusion between Krishna and Krishna. If you look at Draupadi's relationship with Krishna, you see Draupadi actually being friends. You know, it is a wonderful relationship. It is absolutely beautiful. She is free to criticize all five of her husbands to Krishna. And whenever Draupadi is in trouble, it is not her five, great warrior Pandavas who come to her rescue. It is Krishna. When Dushasan tries to disrobe her in the Kuru Sabha, it is Krishna who comes with endless fabric to cover her up. All her five husbands have already been, gambled away. They have no right. So they are sitting there with their head down, doing nothing. And she's one woman. And Dushasan and Duryodhan and Karna are, they behave in a horrible way. Krishna comes to her rescue. Then in the forest, when Duryodhana sends Dhritarashtra, I'm so sorry, Durvasa, the sage, to the forest, he to eat. Okay, and so he tells Durvasa, "My cousins are in the forest. Please go and bless them." And Durvasa goes with his huge team. Uh, Duryodhana is almost sure that the Pandavas will not be able to feed Durvasa and his group, and Durvasa is very likely to be very annoyed. But then what? And there is a vessel which Draupadi gets as a gift, as a boon, and that is called Akshaya Patra. Akshaya Patra literally means the pot which will never be empty. There's only one condition: if Draupadi once Draupadi eats, that vessel will not work till the next day. So deliberately, um, Duryodhana sends Durvasa a little late, hoping that Draupadi would have finished her meal and then the magic vessel would not work. And things happened exactly like that. Um, when the Durvasa and his group reached Pandava's place, Draupadi had already finished her meal, and the Akshaya Patra was, it was empty, and it would not refill till the next day. So then Draupadi is desperate. So she tells Durvasa, please go and have a bath before you eat, because that's how they did it. I mean, much before our days of coming back home and washing our hands endlessly in these COVID days. So then they go for a bath, and then she's desperate. So she calls out to Krishna and says, help me. Then Krishna comes and says, Krishna says, I'm hungry. So Draupadi is like, she's at the end of her tether, because, she's got to feed this Durvasa and his group. And on top of that, Krishna says, I am hungry. So, I mean, she had called Krishna to seek a way out of this mess. And then Draupadi says, the whole thing. What are you? I mean, are you making fun of me? Are you pulling my leg? So Krishna says, no, there will be something for me to eat. And he says, bring that Akshaya Patra, let me see. So she brings him the Akshaya Patra. Krishna looks into the patra and there's a tiny leaf. So he just picks it up and eats it. And he says, now I'm feeling full. And he smiles. So Draupadi is still desperate. Okay, Krishna may fulfill himself with a tiny leaf, but what about the others? Then Durvasa and his team are taking a bath. The moment they come out of the river, they find themselves to be completely full. They have that feeling of complete fullness. And then they decide we can't go back to the Pandavas, because it's crass bad manners. They have invited us for a meal, and we, all of us are feeling it's, not even 5 or 6 of us can eat, so that you can save the face. So they quickly say that no, we will come another day, and they go. So Draupadi again has been saved by Krishna. And this relationship of it's a wonderful relationship. It also shows that a male and a female can be friends without the slightest bit of sexuality in it. And there's one thing which I found out. I don't know if I'm imagining it or not. I find that in India, still you can go out for a meal with a man and have not the slightest idea of sexuality. There's no boyfriend. It's not like You go out for a date, then you go out for a second date, and then you're expected to go into a relationship. I find this more in the West, sadly, very sadly. And there's also this feeling that if you if you're not in a relationship as a woman, you're failing. You have to be in a relationship, you have to have a child. And this is not limited to the West. This is everywhere, everywhere. Somebody says that, look, I want to study, I don't want to get married. A woman says that, everybody's like, oh, there's something wrong with her. That is very sad.
You put out some very good points here, and I would like to just also uh, point out some additional things. I will go into that direction a little bit. That the Vedic culture or the Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma culture has never, like as per the official textbooks,
Mm,
never discriminated against either gays or lesbians or any of these categories. You'll never see any reference of that also. There is no written thing that the man has a dominion over women. That is not written anywhere.
mm,
Whereas that thing has been embedded into scriptures also of the many of the, and that's where the original thought comes from, which you just said just now, that there can be only one relationship between man or a woman, other than if unless they are sister or brother uh, or a parent, that relationship is there, not mentioned in any scripture. Now, coming to the practical side of it, today's life also, we have seen that i- before the West put the women into armed forces or in the governance,
mm,
the leadership is shown by India. Despite being whatever being said in the media, because media puts out many atrocity literatures purposely for the one or the two other incidents also where which happen, but people don't realize that if you look at the per 100,000 women population in India, violence against women is just 2.8, internationally known,
mm,
whereas
mm,
in Australia is 28.2 violence per 100,000 women, and in US is has broken all the records. It's like the number one country right now, 30 point something. The violence is very high despite being whatever media says. But there is a particular characterization to demean the ancient Vedic culture so that people do not get attracted to it or take shelter of it. There's a particular campaign. Now, but if you see the practical reality, India had women prime minister in just last 70 years. And before that, India had Rani Lakshmi Bai, who surprised British. And there were many numerous women who led the struggle against the British imperialism and colonization. They led the struggle against even the attack by the invaders, Islamic invaders also. So women have always held the position of women of leadership and on their own initiative, not as per told by their husbands or anything else. There's a very famous story when the Alexander was crossing and they attacked. And I have fairly researched this incident through many universities, University of Cairo and University of Moscow, that he was not able to cross the river Ravi, Alexander, because the porous was there. And then when he was going back in a village, he had killed all the male population in that village, everyone. The women over there, who were the wives of those kings, and they assembled a protest, military protest, and he had only 9,000 soldiers left when he was going back, running away because he was very badly injured and his bodyguards wanted to protect him. In that village, there was a fight between his generals. Alexander personally did not fight there because he was very injured through porous. And out of 9,500 soldiers, it's a recorded history, only 500 came alive. And Greek historians, somewhere they mention it, that they never saw women as ferocious on trying to take avenge their husband's death, father's death, their son's deaths. They never saw, Alexander never witnessed that kind of ferocity. And there is a one very famous thing they have written in that historians. It's in the University of Cairo. These things are not taught in Indian universities, unfortunately. The one thing they said, they did it for Narsinga. So Narsinga became their strength to fight this injustice to them. There was this place was known as Mulstan. Today is known as
Okay.
Multan, and they had a huge Narsinga temple over there from the
Okay.
time of Prahlad Maharaj or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
And that incident
Okay.
just shows that the is a historical incident, and many historians do not cover BC history very much detail, but for us it's very relevant because it's a very ancient civilization we belong to. Now that history shows that women were always considered socially as the leaders of the society because they would bring up the children. So since they did not have any children, they took the mantle to protect the honor of their husbands and their children, and gave a crushing military defeat to him. So when he actually left Bharat after the boundaries of Afghanistan, they had only 500 people left. By the time he reached Basra, it was only 250 soldiers went left alive with Alexander. He had come to attack India with 40,000 soldiers. So 40,000 to
Okay.
250. And then we all know that in Babylon, he left his Basra, he left his body, and through the injuries. So this is a historical account. Very few people teach it. And I also recall from my own grandmother and other people, we would give at least one family, one member, to either Sikh or to Marathas,
Okay.
to so that they can protect the land. This was a condition of the women. And somehow, I don't know where it's maybe lack of history teaching or lack of awareness. These things are not taught in the modern education system. And even the West also, which creates these education systems, they don't teach all this history. So there are wrong conceptions being created against the ancient Vedic culture, Vedic teachings, and other areas, which do not tell this kind of history to people. So what is your viewpoint in like what type of history should be told, so that men have to be trained more now, because they have to realize that that this is the history. If it was not for the mothers, they would not become a.
Yeah, a lot of my female friends are going to love you for that remark. Okay. What you just made. They're really going to love you.
So
Uh,
what is your view on that? What do you suggest? Because some serious education change has to happen. Even Prime Minister Modi, one time in the first reference, he said, and I loved his remark: your sons have to be taught more than your girls, because you try to control your girls, but your sons have to be taught more.
See, may I suggest that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first thing which we have to do is that we have to, each person, each one of us have to be confident of what we have, of the culture we have. Okay. And I'm sorry to say that a lot of our culture now is being not self centered but selfish. There's a small difference between the two. When you center yourself to yourself, then you don't have to look at approvals from other people, so you are able to go in the search of truth. Because believe me, even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna never told Arjuna, please take the whole lot of your Pandavas with you into into salvation. Okay. And see, take the Bhagavad Gita for example. I know I'm digressing, but Bhagavad Gita is a call to arms after every negotiation has failed. It is not, come on, Arjuna, just beat them hollow. So, what happens is, in Lalita Sahasranama, there's a phrase which is Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Ichha Shakti is the desire. You must want to know. Okay, then you go searching for knowledge, and then you do it. So, until and unless we are very confident, and we should be confident that and look at this, yogas come, yoga is now re-imported from the West. Therefore, Indians are into yoga. Isn't it very sad? Patanjali was here. Shiva, who taught Patanjali, was here. Still, we have to get ratification from somebody else. So instead of looking into ourselves, the moment we look at, of course, you should look at others. You should look. There is no contradiction between going inwards and going outwards. This is the sad thing is we have become an either or culture, either men or women, either looking inside or looking outside. So learn from everybody. See, because we have our, instinctively we will choose what is the best, and then read up on our past. One of the biggest flaws in India, if you generally look at it, is the lack of Sanskrit, lack of knowledge of Sanskrit. Even my knowledge of Sanskrit is very patchy, nothing like it should be. So most of the texts are in a language which we do not know. It's quite a lot like Latin. Latin is also beautiful. My God, I mean, like whatever whenever I hear Latin, I try to get a translation. So first thing is to look at ourselves, look at our temples, look at our look at the carvings. Now you know what's happening. They're trying to cover up the naked carvings on a lot of temples, and the carvings are so detailed. You can see the cuticles. Okay, the cuticles on the hands. On the legs, you can see the ornamentation. It's beautiful. And now, because it is immoral, we become very Victorian. A woman is just to a woman is a vessel to have kids. We've stopped celebrating the body, and when that we become shy, and when all the so physically we become shy, mentally we become uncurious. The moment you're uncurious, you're on your way to be dead, to dying. Because like, okay, then you say, okay, fine, somebody says something, fine. That is not no. Some texts in some Hindu texts say that ultimately the goal of human life is to know God. So you look at everything, you see everything on just like, I remember you're telling me that somebody told you that Krishna is the only God because he's enjoying himself. So you have this dhanam dhanyam pashum bahuputra labham. After that you go to God. Rishyashringa, whose father Vibhandaga tried to make his son, enlightened before him, failed miserably. And he is the one who was, who did the Putrakama Yashti for Dasharatha, which resulted in Rama being born. So it's all interconnected. See, we've broken the connections, we've broken the interconnection. So it's like we've got incidents, disconnected incidents, or thinking has become disconnected. And we're taught that emotion versus logic versus wealth versus advantage, birth versus influence. It's become a mess. Like we have been taught to divide ourselves into a lot of unconnected facets. Facets are never unconnected, but blobs of personality, and blobs because they're all unformed. And there is this vague thing for the larger good. The larger good of whom? By whom? So unless you really go back to the drawing board of education, because ultimately every nation wants its citizens to be good people, right? When as good as possible. I'm not talking about a Pollyanna-esque world, but as good as possible. You want them to have a certain discipline, a physical discipline, a mental discipline, an emotional discipline. What kind of kids are you going to produce? What kind of kids are parents, a father and a mother who are always fighting each other going to produce? What is that kid is going to hear inside the stomach? We have stories of Abhimanyu knowing how to get into the Chakravyuha, but not knowing how to get out of it because he heard it when he was in his mother's stomach. The West now says, play classical music to pregnant women. It's very similar. So see, there is a similarity of goodness everywhere. The only thing is we should know how to tap it and bring it out.
Yeah, goodness has unfortunately only one version. It has no two versions across the world, across humanity. It's only one version. Now, coming back to you said very important things about Arjun.
You're absolutely right.
Yes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah. So,
Yes, yes, yes.
so in you quoted Bhagavad Gita, and I would like to say just a small incident that right before the Mahabharat war happened, and before Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Krishna asks Arjun to worship Durga, and Arjun says beautiful eight prayers to Durga, and those are one of the most beautiful. I'll share with you sometimes, and after that, Durga immediately appears in front of him, immediately, and she tells him something wonderful. That you are Nar, and on the chariot is Narayan. You have
Ah,
been worshipped by the throughout the world for all the times, and I always carry out the will of Narayan. She says it very to Arjun, and then she blesses him that he will be victorious. Now, most of the people, even including when we say uh, that most of the people do not understand that why Krishna, being the Durga calls him the source of everything, and why will Krishna first ask Arjun to worship Durga? Because of her prowess in winning military battles.
yes,
And
yes.
Shivaji Maharaj, a very famous slogan, Jai Bhavani. And then he gave to his armed forces. And today also many factions of the Indian armed forces use that slogan. Uh, and then the second thing you said about the European. So most of the distortion in a pre-European Renaissance society, the pre-1600 society, even though they may be very barbaric, but they were not gross human rights abusers of women or children, anything. But the post-European Renaissance has created so many artificial philosophies to support their colonization that it is still continuing and gradually getting dismantled through the spread of the Vedic knowledge gradually. Now, yoga, meditation, dhyan, reincarnation, vegetarianism, these are becoming the common terms for intelligent conversations in the American society also. More and more intelligent conversations. So, when you compare the two eras, that European Renaissance period, and Indian continuous civilization, even though some parts they've forgotten in last few hundred years, but they're gradually coming back again. The common sense factor has always been present in the Vedic culture, the common sense factor. But the common sense factor is totally absent in the Renaissance culture. They call it the classical European culture, which defines the Western society today. The classical liberalism, classical socialism, all these terms, fancy terms, very, very fancy terms, sounds good in English. But if you look at the definitions of what they call such fancy terms, it is a common sense knowledge. Even the rickshawala in India will tell you that thing. You go and speak to some rickshawala in India, and he will give you some pravachan which which can be which can go above the head of many European scholars there. So so the
Even Indian scholars. Even Indian scholars, Aditya.
even Indian
Even
scholars
Indian scholars.
who are
Oh,
influenced by the same European
oh,
Renaissance theorists, I call them theorists. So where has
ah,
the how do we bring back this common sense now? Because the common sense has to come from India. I see a lot of slogans. India should become a Vishwa Guru, and it's a big talk going on everywhere nowadays. But my take has been, India has always been the Vishwa Guru because it's being the cradle of civilization, and the anything which Indian scriptures or traditions or culture show is a common sense. So, what is your take on that? And then we'll end this talk, and we'll do another talk sometime later, please.
I would go to this one aphorism, which is physician, heal thyself. Now, It is true that there are lots of isms, okay? Unfortunately or fortunately, a large part of what passes for Hinduism, which is why I said a lot of Hindus, philosophers will also be stunned at the common sense of the rickshawala. A lot of what passes for Hinduism is not Hinduism. We, instead of looking at ourselves as, instead of styling ourselves as a Vishwaguru, I think what we should do is, what happened in the past, make India such a library of knowledge, such a library of arts, of culture, of painting, of dance, of music, of the arts, of humanism, of humanity, so that everybody wants to come to India. Unfortunately, there is no point in saying that, look, we know, it is true that our culture is a living culture from time immemorial. That is great. That is its inherent common sense working out things. But unless and until we learn, see, for me to teach somebody, I have to know at least a little bit more than him or her, right? So unless we constantly update, it's like, it's look, we are living in the age of technology. We have to update. We have to update ourselves. We have to update our knowledge. We have to update our outlook. We cannot say that if we, like, if somebody is bad, so we keep them out. No, that is not Hinduism. The moment, if somebody does not want to join us, let them go. Simple. And why are we so scared? Now, Hinduism, which was a very positive and very affirming religion, is in somewhere, not, and thankfully not everywhere. It is sliding into a Me Tooism, which is very sad. Because if it is me too, I might as well go to the original me. If I want a controlled, unquestioned philosophy, I might as well go to the most rigid, uncontrolled philosophy. Why should I come to Hinduism? Because Hinduism is a duplicate of that. So unless we, because listen, all human beings are the same. Okay, we want the same things. There's no point in saying that we want this and you want this. I mean, apart from, of course, politicians who see to it worldwide that people are fighting. Does anybody really want war? Does anybody want their children to go and fight and die? I don't think so. So unless we stand firm in what Hinduism is, unless we are convinced that it is a good thing, unless we are convinced, we are going to make a very sad Vishwaguru. And I would say, forget the Vishwaguru. We don't have to be the Vishwaguru. They have to come to us. Why do we have to run behind them saying, giving a visiting card, hello, India, Vishwaguru? See? Because if and I think I've said, I believe in this, if we have something which is excellent, people will come to us. People will come to us because the people have a tendency to go towards what is excellent. And then that is where the feminism, the gentleness comes in. It's not it's not, I cut off your I cut off 10,000 heads so that the watching 20,000 will come into my religion. Because believe me, Aditya, I'll tell you one thing: you can never force love, you can never force respect, you can force obedience, you can force fear. So it is up to each of us to see how kind, how, oh please, but that does not mean, kind and gentle does not mean taking nonsense. When violence is initiated against you, please have the confidence to be violent back. There's no other, I mean, I wish I could say nice things, but it's not true. But never ever be the one to initiate the violence in the first place. Durga is like that. She takes a lot of nonsense before she decides, okay, fine, now this is your last chance. So that is when she kills her demons. She's one of the
No,
most feminine of gods.
I'm going to take that topic in the next discussion now, the last lines that you spoke. And
Thank you.
you said a very good point, and the essential meaning is that the mischaracterization of some other ancient culture doesn't put your culture on a higher pedestal. Very clearly,
Exactly.
it is established through our conversation today. And so instead of demeaning ourselves, and I think your message is very loud and clear, we need to look into ourselves first and then understand based on historical facts, and then
Yes.
automatically the false pride will go away, or the fake pride will go away.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Lakshmi ji. It's always a
You're
pleasure to talk to
absolutely
you.
right, Aditya.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And
Thank you, Aditya, for having me. And thank you so much. And let's hope that 2021 is wonderful for all of us. Namaste.
thank you. Namaste. And viewers, keep watching. Subscribe on the YouTube. Do comment over there. And if you have any other topics, do tell us. Thank you so much, Lakshmi ji. Namaskar.